Now let's go to the semifinalists, Dalton. Starting off with the Texas Longhorns. Why do you think the Longhorns can make it back to the college football playoff for what would be the third year in a row?
Two reasons. One, I think the first one, we'll get into Arch Manning, but the first one is they have superstars coming back on defense. You think about guys like Colin Simmons, right, who is really, arguably, along with Dylan Stewart, the best true freshman edge rusher and one of the best edge players in the country. You think about Michael Taft coming back on defense at safety, one of the highest graded safeties in the country. Malik Muhammad at corner. Anthony Hill at linebacker. The catalyst of this team this past year was actually the elite play of their defense, the way they fixed the secondary with guys like Andrew Makuba in the transfer portal, the emergence of Jahdae Barron as an elite player. They do have guys to replace like that. There's several guys that went to the NFL. Those two, Alfred Collins up front, but they're starting to get in this cycle with their defense of developing young players, turning them into the veterans, and then developing more behind them and their elite talents. So to me, it actually starts with their defense, and then you go to the other side of the ball and look, any Steve Sarkisian offense we know is going to be able to score points. They're losing pieces on the offensive line, that's true, but you got a Manning at quarterback now, right? And there was some arguments about last year. Should they have stuck with him? Should they have not? Well, there's no arguments this year because Quinn Ewers is off to the NFL too. Arch Manning is obviously the centerpiece of the offense. I think it's big to get C.J. Baxter back in the run game because it felt like, Trey Wisner did a great job this past year. They have Jarrett Gibson as a young player who I believe was he also injured during the season? Is that right?
I think so, yeah.
I mean, they had a lot of injuries at running back. You start in that
C.J. Baxter, too.
You start in that in that backfield with Arch Manning and C.J. Baxter, and then you have Ryan Wingo, another great true freshman receiver last year on the outside. I think there is a base. It might take a little more time because they are young on offense, but the biggest reason for me is they have a legitimate top of the SEC defense with a ton of star power and still a ton of NFL talent.
And they've had a top 6 recruiting class in the country 4 straight years now, right? So they're always going to recruit at a very high level. Arch Manning, the era is finally here for Arch Manning. He'll be one of the most hyped quarterbacks in college football history because of his last name and also because of how good he looked when he was inserted at quarterback. He had an 88 PFF grade. He's already one of the betting favorites to win the Heisman Trophy. I think he actually might be my pick to win the Heisman Trophy next year. I haven't decided that yet, but I mentioned C.J. Baxter before. He was the #1 running back out of high school a couple years ago. He looked really encouraging when Jonathan Brooks went down with an injury. He had to be the starting running back, and he showed a lot of signs. And unfortunately, he missed all of last year with an injury preseason. But I'm excited to see what he can do as a redshirt freshman, or redshirt sophomore, I should say. And then an exciting wide receiver room that you got there in Ryan Wingo, DeAndre Moore Jr., and a true freshman in Khalil Lockett, who was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. A lot of Texas people think he's going to be one of the starting 3 receivers for the Longhorns next year. You mentioned Colin Simmons. I think he has an argument to be the best edge in college football. He's at minimum a top 3 edge in college football. You got Dylan Stewart and T.J. Parker from Clemson who have arguments in that top 3. But you got him. Trey Moore is back as well. Really another good edge rusher. So really good pairing they have right there. You mentioned Michael Taft, one of the best returning safeties. Malik Muhammad's one of the top returning corners. Anthony Hill is one of the best linebackers in the country. And Texas has made it to back-to-back college football playoff semifinals now. I think they have the talent on this roster. We had the #1 overall in our way to really top 25. They have a talent on this roster to get over the hump and win it all next year.
Yeah, no, I think so. And again, it comes down to Manning and his development and just how much Sarkisian gives him the reins, right? It felt like there were times where he couldn't quite always give Quinn Ewers the reins because of some inconsistency. I mean, again, this is the exciting thing about having a Manning as your quarterback, right? As a long lineage of obviously great players, Archie, Peyton, Eli. Now we're getting into the next third generation of them now, which feels crazy, but he shouldn't be asked to do too much early on, especially with the way this defense is playing. But it's going to be fun too. Was it week 1 or week 2? They're playing Ohio State?
It's week 1.
That's going to be a fun one for sure. So, no, Texas, they have a boatload of talent, and they should be a national title contention.
I think Texas is probably our favorite to win it all next year. And so the fact they have the defending national champion against the favorite to win the national championship in week 1 with 2 brand new quarterbacks who have 5-star pedigrees and Julian Sain and Archer Manning, that is going to be an incredible matchup. I believe it's in Columbus, Dalton, so we might have to make a trip down there.
No, certainly. We're going to have to try to do that.
We're going to have to get down there for that game. That's one of the must-see games of the entire season in week 1, honestly. Hey, thanks for watching another episode of the PFF College Football Show. Please make sure you guys subscribe to the channel.
Also, subscribe to PFF Plus at subscribe.pff.com for all of the same data and grades that we use in our show, plus fantasy tools, betting tools, and our mock draft simulator.